I tell that to every founders I talk. If you're building your company, remember this: as a business, there's no more liability that you're taking more than your tech stack. So be very deliberate about what you're bringing on, right?
Hey everyone, I'm Debbie Madden, the host of the Scaling Tech Podcast. Today, I'm really excited to talk to Heman Duraiswamy about building a tech stack for your startup. Hey Heman, thanks for being with us today on the podcast.
Absolutely, Debbie. Thanks for having me.
So before we jump in, just for those that don't know you, Heman is the co-founder and CTO of a company called Circa. They're revolutionizing the rent collection process amongst the multifamily industry. And prior to founding Circa, you have over 20 years of experience building scalable and robust technology stacks for companies across the board, varying sizes of maturity, from established such as Orbitz, Hortonworks, Swiss Re that many of us have heard of, all the way down to startups. So let's kind of start there. So walk us through, if you can, your transition from, some folks in your shoes have done this transition and some have not. So walk us through your story of how you went from working for a multi-billion-dollar enterprise such as Swiss Re and the others to starting your own business from ground zero.
Yeah, that's a great question. And in fact, the question that I asked myself many, many times before I did the leap of faith, I should say. So at least in my case, it was just a mental thing, right? You have this security wall of a big company backing you up, and you know that your paychecks are going to hit your bank account like a clockwork, every 15 days, every 2 weeks, whatever. Versus you making the move and taking that risk, and I think that was the biggest one for me. But thinking back, having done that, having been on both sides, I will do it over and over again. But that's a philosophical answer. I'll come to exactly a technical answer about what is it to build, all things equal, build this tech stack, for a big company versus a startup. At least in my case, I'm very fortunate, I should say, because every single big company that I've worked with, I've been either early in the cycle or I'd been one of the key employees within a business division that was almost doing like a startup thing. So for example, at Orbitz, I was heading their research group, which is basically using big data when it is new, to build data use cases. So that was new. And before that, I was one of the 2 members in the IVR team. IVR is the phone system when somebody calls in Orbitz. Even in Swiss Re, we had a business division called iterating, which is a consumer life insurance product. And I was the first IT employee after a CTO building, having put my hands on everything that I can. So I was fortunate. So I learned, things to do, things not to do, battle scars, if you would. So that, so from an architecture standpoint and how to build systems, I had that experience coming in. But still, the challenge was, over there, I had a problem of clarity. There were support groups, there's a HR group, and there's everything. And here I'm doing that on a shoestring budget. So that, which means I need to be more efficient. I need to optimize my resources. I do a lot more, heavy lifting than I would normally do. So that was a difference. But but as I said, I'm fortunate because I had this background. If you're new, then I definitely say, make sure that you talk to, or you get help within your network or whoever, of some experienced people who has built system, because because that's going to be your biggest liability when your business grows.
I think that's great advice because there is the ability to build technology and pieces of the technology, and then there's the foresight of those that have seen it before. And I really like your focus on, if you are an early team member of a business unit, even if the rest of the company is a problem of plenty and there's HR support and all of these things, still having that experience is very similar and you can draw from that. So if you're new, you can find someone who has been an early member of a business unit, not necessarily only have to find mentorship from people that have built startups or built enterprise systems.
Exactly. Yep.
Yep, absolutely. I love that. So that kind of takes me to my next question, right? And so, like many of the folks listening to this podcast, I've been in the tech industry, and we know that Paul Graham from Y Combinator famously said, do things that don't scale," right? And that was a really good way to sum up how to start a startup. And so, when it comes to thinking about how to start off with a tech stack for a startup, what do you think the most important factors as a technical founder are? Because there's so many things, and so like, what are the most important things that you're thinking through with Circa, and maybe things that you've learned, maybe things that you've learned from mentors?
Yeah. And I should say, I mean, outside of running Circa, building the tech stack within Circa, I also am a mentor in within Techstars, a charter member at Tiny York, and also helping the entrepreneurship program within that institute. So all that to say, I met with a lot of young startup founders who has these great ideas and they wanted to build system. So I want to tell you this. A lot of people overthink and they wanted to build a perfect software. And that's where I 100% agree with with the Paul Graham, do things that don't scale up. It actually means that just go there and do it. So your software is a very, very small piece, even if unless you are completely a tech company, like you're building a database, right? Like a NoSQL database, like what MongoDB does, then your tech matters. But if you're a tech-enabled company, then I've seen a lot of people spend overly, too much time on designing a perfect software. So I think that's why you need to get there. You need to do. I mean, as a startup, there's so many things that you're going to go do manual, right? You may, if you're an e-commerce store, for example, you don't have to think about how do I integrate with payment and all of those things. As a startup, you're at that point you're just validating your idea. Unless you're hitting consistent scale, then even do the payments over the phone, whatever it takes to make sure there's a product fit, right? Boiling down to your specific question on, as a tech founder, what do you do and what you don't do? The single most thing that you cannot compromise is making sure that you're building your architecture, your underlying systems that is scalable, right? Always think about your traffic times 10x times 100x. Can I scale? Every blocks, like it's like a Lego building block, every block you can just rip it off, you can replace, But as long as the underlying framework is supportive of that scale, and that's the reason when we built Circa, we made a choice that we will go full-fledged architecture on Microsoft Azure. That's what we use. We are not building POC or a sandbox or any of those things because at that point when it scales, you're not going to scale. Then you're ripping band-aids to every single hole, and it's not going to scale. So make sure your architecture is correct. Make sure your underlying platform is done right, and then, as said, everything else, do it quick iterations, small iterations. That's pretty much it.
At what point did you decide that you were going to use Microsoft Azure before you wrote any lines of code?
Absolutely, yeah. We spent tons of time whiteboarding like years, I would say, with my co-founder Leslie. We would book a office space, and we would do whiteboarding like at 7 p.m. At that point in time, Leslie used to live in Westport, Connecticut. So the Westport library is like necessary. You can book meeting rooms. We spend their evenings whiteboarding. We did lunch and learns with who we think is our potential customers. We did focus groups. We did surveys. So we did all of those things before we even put anything on the software, right? Saying, okay, what do we need? And once we need, okay, this seems to be something we could take to the market. Then we said, then all that I was thinking is, all right, what kind of services am I going to build? This standalone, like a one-page website on, like, say, PHP code and stuff like that. I mean, PHP is great. I mean, there are companies which run on PHP, but my point being, I spend a lot of time making sure that my technology stack is correct. The security is a big thing for us. Like, we need to take our user data seriously because they're trusting us with their rent payment data and their bank information. So we want to make sure that our underlying systems are secure, our partners are secure. And then once we did that, then even today, our operations, there are a lot of manual things, right? In our operation, but those are scalable. As I said, I can build incrementally as long as my underlying system are strong enough.
And then, so you talked a little bit about, as we were talking about architecture and where and how we decide that up front, so that once you have that foundation, you can then kind of think of it as Lego blocks. I really like that analogy. You talked a little bit about some ways to then go and experiment with ways to find product market fit. And I tend to agree. Tech leaders, build software too quickly in many cases. And you started to talk about some of the things that you had done at Circa, in addition to whiteboarding. You said focus groups and surveys. And so, how do you know that you have product market fit, or how do you gain confidence that you have product market fit?
Great question again. So, a little bit more about Circa, right? The Circa today offers payment collection, everything from centralized payment collection process, which means a virtual call center, to communication, nudges, everything about payment collection. We do. That's for the properties that we do. For the residents on the other side, one of the biggest value prop is, we are one of the pioneers, I should say, where we started this thing where you don't have to pay rent on the first of the month. You can pay rent like bi-weekly or twice a month, 4 times a month, a weekly payment, however your incoming cash flow is, right? So that was a big part of Circa, why we founded Circa. And we founded Circa because we found there are so much of efficiencies in rent collection. Still people paying through cash, through checks, money orders, right? We want to make it completely digital. So today, using Circa, the residents can pay using ACH, credit card, debit card. They can even walk in with cash to thousands of retailers across the country. The Walmart, the CVS, Walgreens, 7-Eleven, they pay cash and they get it digitally transferred. So there's no more going to post office, getting money order, writing check, none of those things, right? So that's all great. How do we make money? It's all free. We do charge a very nominal SaaS fee for the property, like somewhere between $1 and $2 a door a month, very nominal. But really, how we make money is for anybody who uses flexible payment plan, like whether it's a bi-weekly or a weekly or 2 times. That's when obviously they pay a fee, and the property determine the fee. We don't determine the fee, but regardless, we keep 1% of that. So if somebody pays on time, we don't make a penny. In fact, there is a transaction cost which we eat. So our biggest thing that we need to prove there is, will people use flexible payment plans, right? And we did all of these studies or focus group, and the result was, you know, th- about 30 to 40% of the respondents said, okay, now we will use digital payments. We like this, like to use digital payments, and about 30 to 40 said we will use flexible payments. Again, you need to adjust those numbers to what would your real audience versus what are these audience, the target group. So we did a little bit of adjusting, and we said in real world there'll be about 25 to 30% who will use flexible payment. That's where we said, like 3-4 years back in the meeting room. Today, with all the data that we have, and we having processing like millions of dollars of rent every month, our numbers are exactly that. 25 to 30% uses flexible payment plan. So those kind of study.
Interesting. And so, but you initially came up with these estimates with activities such as focus groups and surveys, is what
Right.
you're telling me.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Because that's when we started to put in a pricing strategy, because we need to be sustainable as a business, right? Our mission is to make sure we keep the roof over one's head, because there's nothing worse than losing your house, right? I mean, your kids will go to the school, you lose job. That's terrible. But then that's a mission. But still, for us to deliver on our mission, we still need to make make a profitable company. So
I find it very encouraging and interesting that the initial data estimates that you bore out through your measured exercises and outside of your tech stack decisions are still then, as you're monitoring and iterating, and examining things like this, the numbers are still so close.
And also it's just not that. It also helped us to pick what is the core group that we need to go after, right?
Wow. Okay.
Very early, we said, okay, we're not going after the Avalons and the high end luxury apartment renters. That's not our market, right? Our market are affordable housing, garden style apartments, mobile homes, and again, that data is again part of the focus group, because we did it against very luxurious renters versus a more affordable like working class population, and that also defined what our GTM strategy, go to market strategy is. So it's a combination. I mean, it's just not numbers were exactly what came out. It also is because we focused our target, our market, like based on.
Okay. And also I want to get into the monitoring and iterating part in a second, but first I just want to dig back into the tech stack piece a little bit. Because you and I had talked before this conversation around it's not what you build, but how you build that's harder. And this is going back to, okay, once you have product market fit and once you have your estimates and customer segments and you build that foundational architecture, then you had said to me earlier that your tech stack is the biggest liability. And so, talk to me about that, and like, what can people do to hedge against this risk?
Yeah, that's my goal line. I tell that to every founder as I talk. If you're building your company, remember this: as a business, there's no more liability that you're taking more than your tech stack. So so be very deliberate about what you're bringing on, right? Once you've deployed your own, like I work with this a good friend of mine. I mentor them. The company is called Alchemy Vision. They are educational platform for ophthalmologists, right? So initially they did Kajabi is a platform like YouTube, where you can post videos, you can direct your users to go learning videos. And then they were saying, okay, Kajabi has its own limitation. It should, and because it's a very general platform. They wanted to make more. They need to build a custom platform, very much focused to their business. Great. they scaled up. It's a logical next step. But the first thing that I said is, once you build the platform in Kajabi, you're not spending any money maintaining it. Here, you need to manage it, and you need to enhance on that. The new features all on you. There is no vendor here. Every limitation that you talk about Kajabi, you need to build it here, right? So once you're taking that thing in house, you need to staff your operational resource, your cloud resource. If you're using cloud, your development team, your operations team. So that's where I said it is. It's a liability. It's a needed poison that you have to take, and at least to make your life a little bit more easier, make sure that you are having those things solid. You also mentioned the word monitoring, so I'll go a little bit more to that. If you're which is all interlinked, right? So if you're a business owner, if it's me, I'm sitting here, and if my customer, first of all, I don't want my customer to say my system is down. I need to know my system is down, right? Which means you need to monitor every events. Like if there's a memory that is exceeding 80% on your servers, or there are too many requests coming in for whatever reason, you need to be alerted. And even if you're sophisticated enough, you should be able to restart the servers. You need to take action automatically beyond that, which means you need to have those monitoring piece. And still, if customer complains, you need to know what exactly did this customer do. Did they sign up? So, which means because in technical terms, we call this as a correlation ID. An ID which starts with the customer doing something on their web page, on their browser, to it coming to my servers, to go into the database. I need to track everything. So that monitoring is important. If you're a leader, if you're a CTO, and if you're going to be developing features day in day out, I think you're doing something wrong. Really, you're doing something wrong. You should be able to say how your systems are running. You need to. I think that's again. Give the development piece to your team, and make sure that the team is. You're motivating your team. You're monitoring your systems, and you're delivering on your business outcomes. So this is what I would, if you're a young CTO or a young aspiring CTO, and I talk to my mentors, these are all the things that you know. So going back to, it's not what you build, it's how you build it. You can pivot, and startups pivot all the time, right? Just, even very successful startups pivoted from where they started. So always that can be replaced. But how is a part that requires you to be deliberate. Am I building it in a fashion that I can be 100x tomorrow? Always think about 100x.
Yeah, 100x. I've heard people say 10x, but you've just 10x.
I did a 10x. Yeah, I'm a dreamer. Well, in the startup world, it's 100x. When you're doing it, and I'm building it for an enterprise established company, then it's 10x.
Right.
But as a startup, you can be 10x. Yeah,
right. Well, we are about out of time, but hey, man, thank you so much. This has been great, and I've loved how we've talked about not only building a tech stack for your startup, but also really thinking about product market fit, monitoring, and also we talked about the role of a CTO. So we really covered a lot. Appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to everyone listening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and good luck to every startup founders out there. This is an exciting journey, so don't shy away. Go for it.